I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of the Living Death Show. I'm joined by two of my favorite people in the world, two of your favorite people as well. Let's go ahead and introduce them, although they need no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway because we love them so much. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, and my man, Mr. Ben Duffy. What's going on, Ben?
I'm doing real well. We got plenty to talk about. Had a very strange card to kick things off, and I'm sure you guys got plenty to say about it too.
Absolutely. And of course, every week the panel is anchored by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers, the associate editor of Sherdog.com, and my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. What's going on, Jay?
I mean, Ben, you nailed it right on the button, right off the bat. This was a strange fight card. This was a strange whole turn of events, everything that went down this past couple days. Whether the results are noteworthy or we can go home and go, I learned something. I don't know. But I did kind of learn something here, and it's about a fight that should have been the main event based on rankings, or should have been the co-main event based on rankings if you want to make men have the main event, because I mean, obviously Kattar Chikadze is a great fight, but Katlyn Chookagian and Jennifer Maia, which was just kind of stuck on the main card, even though it's the two highest ranked fighters. Katlyn Chookagian has won her 10th decision in the UFC. She has not finished a fight yet, and that means she is the first fighter in UFC history all the way back that has ever gone through 10 wins and never finished a fight. And she looked good in there. She didn't really ever have a moment where she was in danger, but she still won another decision. And now that her contract's up, we might talk about that in a little bit. That might not bode well for her, but 10 is the stat of the week.
Well, that's quite a stat. 10. Yeah, that's a tough 10.
I'll say this much. The fight on Saturday was not as dreadful as a lot of Katlyn Chookagian fights.
Yeah.
Her grappling is as enjoyable to watch as her striking sometimes is not. Like we all joke, she like key eyes and like jabs at air and wins rounds that way. And it's not always fun, but it's always nice to be reminded how good she is on the ground.
Yes, I forgot. I think you're right. I forgot how good of a grappler she can be.
I mean, she is a Renzo Gracie girl, you know?
All right. So let's go ahead, because I know we're about to I feel the tide turning, and we're going to end up just blowing up the nice organization that you prepared for the show today, Jay. So
hey, can we talk about Francis Ngannou now?
You know what? I wish we could.
What's he up to these days?
I don't know.
All right. I'm sorry.
Here he's busy. All right. So let's go ahead and give some love to the main event, because we have it certainly was the best main event that we've seen this year in the UFC. Take that for what it's worth. Calvin Kattar absolutely made easy work of Giga Chikadze. If we were still doing our House Takes My Crow segment, this would certainly be served on my plate with all sorts of seasonings, and I'd be happy to eat that, because what a great performance by Kattar. Now, because of that, I mean, we had a great fight there, but it was light on the whole card was light on finishes. Certainly had some fights that sort of pushed the limits of the average fan's patience as far as entertainment is concerned. Does that main event, as great as it was, does that make UFC on ESPN 32 a good card in retrospect?
No. I mean, because it wasn't that good a main event. It was surprising, but it was completely one-sided. There was no suspense after about the halfway point of the second round. So it just became kind of a death march. It was impressive to see Kattar do what he did. It was impressive to see Chikadze survive it. And, you always wonder how a prospect like Chikadze is going to react, the first time he takes a beating like that. And he never stopped trying to win the fight. He never just wilted and went away. So, I mean, it was a good main event, but that doesn't salvage an otherwise kind of rough card.
So Jay, I'm gonna kick it to you with this thought here. Now, we were talking last week about how, we're ready to see some fights again. the expectation, I want to say maybe the expectations were too high. Maybe our sensitivity for entertainment was high, and that should have made things easier. I mean, where did you fall on the spectrum? Were you like so anxious to see fights, just any jab, any poorly executed double leg takedown would have made your day? Or were you so pumped that it's like, I need to see action? Where did you lie?
Well, it's an interesting predicament that I am in as the Sherdog play-by-play writer, because I don't have the luxury of enjoying fights, the UFC fights, the same way any person can. And I have been doing that for a couple of years now. And other than, there were two instances. There was a card in Singapore in late 2019 that I wasn't assigned to because the time zones were crazy and we had somebody else on the West Coast that could take it. I'm sorry, Weili Zhang and Rose Namajunas 2, when my power exploded and Mr. Duffy rescued me. This was the first card that I actually was able to, in part, watch and consume as a fan. And I did so for behind the curtain reasons, for scheduling purposes, and somebody else took the reins.
No, nothing like that. He passed this thing off to me. He passed the baton so he could go watch the Patriots. He handed it to me right at the Chookagian fight. And so I just looked over there and I was like, Josh Allen, sweep the leg.
That's
You're probably watching the same thing that Dana was watching. I have a hard time believing that Dana was not sitting at his seat cage side watching the Patriots.
He was. I'm guarantee.
I'm sure. I mean, he was sitting cage side watching Canelo. He was definitely watching the Patriots when this was going on.
There's no way that he wouldn't, because especially because of what he had gotten so far. Like, it was 5 straight decisions, then the knockout, and then I turned the reins over. So I guess I went through the hard part, and you got to enjoy Jake Collier styling on Shea Sherman. I felt the main event differently. I could feel the oohs and the ahs and the oh man and that kind of feeling that I can't really enjoy because I'm too busy oohing and ahhing on paper or on digital paper. And it felt exciting, and then I thought, oh, okay, is this fight of the year worthy? And then I had a little bit time to think, and I went, no, I think it's just because we hadn't had a lot of good action. Relatively, it was so much better. It's like when Felicia Spencer fought Chris Cyborg, and she did okay, and she survived, and she kind of grappled with Cyborg, and she got beat up, but she didn't lose, I guess, in the way that people expected her to lose. She just, lost a one-sided fight. And people were like, oh, man, Felicia Spencer's doing great. I'm like, she's lost this 30-27. There may be a 10-8 round in there. But since it wasn't all 10-8 rounds, it's a win, and people kind of view it higher. Now, I don't think this was a good card. This was a card. It was a fight card. It was content. It happened. But something that really bothers me, ESPN cards used to matter. Guys, it used to be the big ESPN, UFC on Fox, UFC on whatever. It mattered. And this card, even though it lost several fights along the way on Fight Week in the last couple weeks, it didn't lose that many spectacular matchups. Like the Michelle Bejedo fight was the only really main card fight I think it lost. I believe so. So it wasn't set up to be successful. It was set up to be the first card of the year. Here it is. Now we have 42 to go. So no, it's not of disrespect to the fighters themselves, but it just wasn't.
This was the first pancake in the batch. It's going to be lumpy, so you just kind of throw that first one out there. And
But you know what? This is one of those cards. Like, I know we were clamoring for some sort of fight action after that break of a few weeks, but man, I would have rather have had another week of a break and then roll into UFC 270, a packed card to start off 2022 with a bang.
I am so happy you said that, because it's exactly how I felt after this card happened. I thought this shouldn't have happened. They should have made they should have built it up, because here's the problem. It's Monday. UFC 270 is Saturday, and we're having to talk about Calvin Kattar doing what I said he was going to do in the show. By the way, go watch the tape. What's up? Other than that, it was a card that we have to push through, and it takes away from the pay-per-view that's happening. You know how many people know that Francis Ngannou is fighting this coming weekend? Like 6. There is no hype. There's no pump for 270, and this took away from it.
Uh,
I personally, and I'll let you speak in a second, Dovey, I personally was more excited about KSW 66 than this fight card that happened right here this weekend. And that's just a symptom of we knew it was going to happen. And I also had LFA and Invicta and a couple other fight cards before Kamaru Usman's African knockout promotion. I had a couple of those to watch before this to have some fights going. So it wasn't, my first fight card. But anyway, Duffy, what are you thinking?
Well, now I want to say something different because
okay.
KSW is so fucking violent.
Like, yeah.
I have the privilege of editing Jay's Fight Facts stat pieces. If you don't read them, 1, punch yourself in the face. 2, start reading them because you will become smarter. That's how I got as smart as I am. And it's just cool to have a brain full of stats to impress your friends and while the ladies or gentlemen of your choice. But KSW 66 had a 40% finish rate, 4 finishes out of 10 fights, and that's the second lowest percentage in KSW history. That's just an average UFC fight card. Like, that's how violent KSW is. It's amazing.
And it's still at the end of the day had the all-time knockout leader.
Okay. There were only 4 finishes, but some of those finishes were gnarly. Miesha Materla, like, I know that the top KSW fighters have really good endorsement deals. Like, the big one is always what's his why am
Kuznowski.
The middleweight. Like, why am I
Khalidov?
Yeah, Khalidov with
Khalidov,
Mercedes-Benz of Woosh. But I hope Miesha Materla has a partnership with the funeral home because he would have made a lot of money off it by now.
All right, fellas. So I mean, I have a feeling that when we do our end of 2022 discussions, we're gonna look back at Calvin Kattar and Chikadze. Like, that's gonna be in the fight of the year or main event of the year discussions. It's gonna be in there. But I have a feeling we're gonna look back at it like we do Volkanovski and Ortega, where it was entertaining, but you saw a beatdown with a few moments of the other guy not dying, essentially. So, but with that being said, I mean, where do we go from here with these two in the featherweight division? Like, who do we learn the most about?
Oh, I got thoughts about this. I think we learned more about Chikadze, and I don't think he's done. There's always a temptation to overreact to these kind of moments because until you've seen something happen, there's a certain mindset that you can't picture it happening. I think we're going to end up looking at this like we look at Michael Johnson beating Edson Barboza, because Barboza had been beaten before, but generally either on the ground or by the threat of the ground game. And Johnson was the first guy to be like, okay, if you stay in this guy's face and box him, tell me if this starts to sound familiar, and don't give him the space and the time to get comfortable and start uncorking those long kicks that he really likes to use, you can stop this guy. You can blunt his tools on the feet. Not everybody can do it. It's not like he's been exposed, but if you're a good enough fighter and you have this tool set, there is a replicable path to victory against him. And I can see Chikadze. I still think he has title picture potential. In fact, I think he might pan out a little bit like Edson Barboza, just a dazzling striker who is in contention, but who knows if he gets over the hump. So I think we learned a little more about Chikadze. Kattar, we just learned, okay, he's still right there, a top 5, borderline top 5 guy.
I agree. We learn more about Chikadze. I think so here. Not just because, again, I had Kattar doing exactly what I thought he was going to do. Step in his face, do that kind of thing. And I'm not even trying to toot my own horn this time, because what I'm saying is that was the strategy that is a replicable strategy that multiple fighters can do. But I think if there was an exposure, it was Calvin Kattar was able to take him down comfortably without too much issue. Granted, the first round had that, it was the slip kick, run, Kattar runs over to him like a meme, grabs him from behind and throws him over backwards. Not a easy to do kind of thing, but it shows that I look at the other fighters in the roster, the other top guys that are up for grabs. Obviously Volkanovski could take him down at will. Max, we forgot that Max can do that thing too, considering what he just did to Yair Rodriguez. Ortega, he would love to ground game, grab hold of him, stay up against him. Rodriguez would give him a stand-up fight, so that could be kind of fun. But Korean Zombie can do the ground thing, grab hold of you, hit rapid darts up. Josh Emmett has wrestling background in his arsenal. So this to me gave me a real hard cap on Giga Chikadze based on what we have. And this is a tough thing for Chikadze. And it isn't just because the one loss ending a win streak. It's because he's coming up on 34. He has a full career behind him. He's not going to be Giga 2.0 D1 AA Giga Chikadze. He's a Georgian kickboxer. He can learn takedown defense, but we're not going to see him in that kind of machine or throwing up triangles from his back. It's just not his game. And to transform him into that would take away his best elements of kickboxing. So I think this is, Duffy, I think you're right on the money. This is a Barboza situation. He's going to be a top 10 worthy guy, but there will be multiple opponents that can impose their will on him, and he also will be able to hurt people really badly and put on a show. But yeah, as for the sky's the limit for this guy, I don't think so anymore. And I think, again, it was such a bad decision for Chikadze to look past Kattar like he did.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest takeaway, at least from Chikadze's standpoint, in my opinion, is that he did just blatantly look over him. That is just foolish at this level to look over an opponent. But I think
then he said he would win 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Which how? And can you answer? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, absolutely.
Can you answer that question?
I wish I could.
How could Giga Chikadze win the other 9?
If Kattar doesn't fight the way he did Saturday. Which why wouldn't he?
If he doesn't fight the way he always fights.
Yeah, that clearly would be the kryptonite. And this is coming from someone who originally picked Chikadze. I thought that he would be better with counterboxing as Kattar was coming toward him. I thought he would handle that situation better. He did not. Maybe it was a function of him looking past him or whatever. But whatever the case may be, we have 25 minutes of evidence to suggest that Chikadze loses to Calvin Kattar if you put them in the cage against each other. And any thought outside of that to me is just lunacy with that 25 minutes of evidence presenting itself. But I would like to throw this out there as in favor of Calvin Kattar and what he and his camp did. This is the textbook of why fighters need to take time off after damaging wars. This is the reason why. There is no way that if he made a quick turnaround from the slaughterhouse that he was put up against versus Max Holloway exactly a year ago, that he would even have a fourth of what he had to offer to Chikadze. Chikadze landed a lot of good shots on him. He had a lot of good pinpoint striking. He countered in certain elements very well. A depleted version of Kattar most likely goes down, or most likely has his rhythm so broken that he can't get back on track. This is why fighters need to take time off. Let your brains heal. Build the confidence back. Get yourself back on the horse in the right way, as opposed to that knucklehead mentality of I need to get this one back and just jumping right back in there. This is why that needs to happen more often in this sport.
And no, you make a brilliant point there. And considering that I was expecting Kattar to lose badly, and I was expecting to come cruising in here on Monday and kind of take Tyson Chartier to task because I mean, what you need to know about the New England cartel is Tyson Chartier is the coach. He is also most of their manager. And I was about to come in here with a full head of steam and say, I can't believe he let his dude fight Giga Chikadze, coming in off like the worst beating of his career. I got to take that back. And I have to give Chartier credit because not only did he take time to recover, but he came back with specific new weapons that they knew were going to to work against Chikadze. Like, he used those short level elbows all night. Chikadze never figured it out. I'm not even talking about the spinning stuff. I'm talking about just, stepping in and giving him a look at a different range than his punches just by coming up with elbows from both sides. And for a guy that changes stances as constantly as Kattar, it was bewildering. And again, Chikadze never ever caught up to it, never figured it out. It was effective from the first round to the fifth. Just brilliant stuff from Calvin Kattar and his team.
And in particular, those elbows, had I been running the play-by-play, I would have specifically noted, this isn't a speak against your play-by-play. My thought is, Giga at one point tried to do them back. He tried very, very short time, like 2 or 3. He tried to do it back. And
that's when you know a dude is shook.
That is precisely it. That we know a guy, he goes, oh man, I don't know what to do with these.
Oh, we're throwing elbow shit now?
I'm going to try and, throw spinning stuff. No, I'm going to try and do that too. But you can't experiment in a 5-round fight against that. You can't experiment and hope that you can get the success of what Kattar had. So yeah, this was exactly what Kattar needed to do. And I struggle to look at the top 10 right now and see somebody that Chikadze has a easy, quick path to beat.
Oh, well, no, here, don't even talk about the top 10.
Bryce Mitchell would ruin him.
Last week for Sherdog, I wrote a wish list for every UFC division, just something that division could use to make it better or stronger, more competitive going into the year. All I wanted for men's featherweight was for Giga Chikadze and the other 3 undefeated prospects, Movsar Evloev, Arnold Allen, and Ilia Topuria, not to fight each other this year. Rank those guys. How do you think a round robin between Chikadze, Topuria, Evloev, and Allen shakes out? I think Evloev destroys Chikadze based on what I saw.
I think Evloev, he's probably my top guy. Maybe Topuria's right up there with him, depending on if they're willing to fight again after what happened this time. And 2, if Topuria can do something on the ground like sweep and submit. But yeah, I think Evloev is the guy, and I think Evloev and Chikadze. Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, that's a ugly matchup for Chikadze. Yeah, I don't like that for him at all. So it's interesting. Like this is one of those fights where, like, you could be so high on a prospect, and just that one chink in the armor, it's like, man, like, but so many other people could do that. You kind of questioning what his space is going to be in that division. And Jay, I think Jay and Ben, I think you both nailed it. This is a top 10 guy who probably won't be able to break through that hump.
Now, if it sounds like I've been trashing on Chikadze all the way, it is partially because of that. But Kattar's chin also deserves a lot of recognition and merit. He barely flinched when Chikadze hit him with the flushest of counters. So I maybe underestimating Chikadze and how he can perform, because I don't know if some of the other people in the top 15 would be able to handle that power. Like I think Alex Caceres is in the top 15 right now. Him getting hit like that, he moves, but he gets hit at the end of shots, so that would hurt him. Shane Burgos would definitely not do as well had they fought instead. But I want to see Burgos Chikadze. Just want to throw that out there.
That actually, yeah, that sounds like a great fight. All right, fellas. Well, let's move on to the fight that should have been the main or co-main based on rankings, as was pointed out earlier. Katlyn Chookagian win streak is still alive. She has defeated Jennifer Maia via decision. Now, with her UFC contract up, this was her fighting her contract out. The UFC refused to re-up her deal before this fight. So now, what's more likely for her future? Are we going to see her rematch Shevchenko for the title? She, probably rightfully earned another shot at the flyweight belt. Or does she move on? Say, for instance, a fight against Liz Carmouche, a rematch there in Bellator. Which one is more likely in your eyes?
If the UFC lets Katlyn Chookagian go right now as the number 3 woman in the flyweight division on a 3-fight win streak, that puts her probably right behind Demetrius Johnson and actually ahead of Corey Anderson as the top, like the best fighter the UFC has ever let go in like the post-tough era. I can see why they would do it. She is a problem for that division because she lost to Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade badly enough that we probably don't need to see either of those again. But she's too good for everybody else, and she's really busy. She probably is the busiest woman in the top 10. So she's going to keep on knocking off your other contenders and prospects faster than you can serve them up unless you do something. I filled in and did the Sherdog matches to make column after this event, and my suggestion for her was Juliana Velasquez, kind of jokingly, because I'm not going to be the guy to suggest the UFC fire a woman on a 3-fight winning streak. But if they don't,
they wouldn't be firing her though, because her contract's up.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I got you.
In effect,
yeah, I got you.
Because they can't use her to test the Aaron Blanchfields and Miranda Mavericks of the world. Like, she would embarrass them right now. You know, I don't even know if she'd fight Blanchfield. I'm sure they've been teammates at some point. My suggestion was Tyler Santos, because Tyler Santos is now on a 4-fight winning streak. She seems to be the real deal. She needs a signature win to get herself into the title picture, and maybe Chookagian would be it. But yeah, I could see the UFC letting her go, and I would feel really, really mixed about that. I basically have to take my cues from how Chookagian seemed to feel about it.
Your reaction is a lot more mixed than mine. I'm pretty confident they're going to let her go. I'm pretty confident by how this has played out and how long it's gone on. This is multiple days. I mean, Chookagian came into this fight mentioning this is the last fight on my deal. I hope things go well for me. And obviously we can make jokes about they're signing Gunnar Nelson on a losing streak, but they haven't jumped to re-sign one of the best flyweights in the world. They're gonna kind of say, well, test out free agency. It's the happy trails Hans kind of thing. It's really a shame, because I enjoy watching her fight more than a lot of people fight, because I appreciate the technique. I'm a karate guy, so I'm down with what she's doing. I can see what she's trying to set up, and it's effective. And if she doesn't get the finishes, that sucks, and she acknowledges that. But her style is effective. It wins. It's point fighting, whatever you want to call it. But it is doing exactly what she wants it to do, and I appreciate a good game plan carried to a T. She's definitely going to Bellator. I don't see any other company that could take her on. PFL doesn't have the division one championship. I can't see her going over there. And then what's left? You're not going down to a D League if you're the top person in the world. So Bellator is the natural evolution, I guess, of Chookagian, which means Chookagian will probably be the champion by like October, is my guess. If Velasquez is willing to fight, they're probably going to make her fight. So they're probably going to make Chookagian fight once, which is why I think the Carmouche fight would make sense, because then they can have the history and the dynamic about them, and it can be the big test to see if Carmouche is ready for the top fight, because the Watanabe fight apparently wasn't big enough for that. And the Deanna Bennett, I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, Chookagian Bellator champion 2023, no doubt about it.
You know what? I think that is the best scenario for Chookagian. If I'm Katlyn Chookagian or anyone in her camp, don't resign with the UFC, because obviously if they weren't willing to try to get a deal going before that last fight, they don't care. Like they genuinely don't care. They're not going to pay her more money now. I think we're pretty clear about that. They're not going to pay her more money. No one is clamoring to see her fight Shevchenko again, even though she's earned another shot at that. The best thing she can do is go elsewhere and keep her name in these streets, keep her name hot in these streets, keep a buzz going, go to Bellator, beat up whoever you got to beat up, get that belt, and force a situation. You don't have to sign a long-term deal with Bellator. Sign a 3-fight deal. Go in there, take out whoever they put up first, probably Carmouche, so that'll be one that'll be fairly easy for them to promote. Go and take the belt and go defend it once. You'll get better pay from Bellator, most likely because of her position in the division. And just the fact that she established herself as a top contender in the UFC. You'll get sponsorships as well because hey, Bellator lets you put logos on your trunks. So you can take that money, build a bigger buzz, and force the UFC's hand, because it's not like the contenderless division of women's flyweight is got this influx of talent. It's just waiting to go at any second. That's not happening. This situation with Shevchenko being a dominant champion is kind of what we see for the near future anyway. So by the time that might start winding down, Chookagian could be a dominant champion in Bellator, and similar to how Dan Henderson made his return to the UFC, similar to how Fabricio Verdum made his return to the UFC. When these guys are able to leave the promotion, do big things outside of it, and then come back and say, hey, this is how much I want to get paid. We could have a situation like that if Chookagian goes out there, and especially if she's fighting a supposedly lower level of competition. Maybe she gets those finishes, maybe she gets those highlights that get people talking. Keep in mind, people in this sport, fans of the sport, have the memory of goldfish. So if the last memory is if Chookagian just icing somebody against the fence, man, we'll forget about those 10 decision wins in the UFC really quick, and she could be back in the octagon with a title fight in her return.
Or her next fight could just be her putting the palm of her hand in the middle of Ilima-Lei Macfarlane's forehead for 3 rounds. Like a big sister. Looking like 2 weight classes apart.
Yeah. I mean, that's
it's
the
worth
best case scenario
mentioning
for her, in my opinion.
Chookagian, I mean, she is what she is as a fighter, and she's like, I know my fights are sometimes, but she has tried to be a company woman. Like, she has said, like, in my presence, like, I've told Sean Shelby that I'll fight on short notice at bantamweight anytime he wants. She's like, I don't really want to move up to bantamweight permanently, but she's like, it's not like I'm at a disadvantage against most UFC bantamweights. Yeah, it's kind of shame. I understand the reasoning, but and you make a good point at, like, she could go and kind of raise her own stock and come back in a year or 3.
I mean, here's a perfect example. This is an almost exact example. Sergio Pettis. Sergio Pettis only won by decision in the UFC. Left, and he was fine. He did okay. He got choked out by Alex Caceres. It was kind of embarrassing for him for a little while. He won his way. He got some good wins over great names. He never got the title shot win, but he has wins over Moreno, etc., etc. Like Chookagian has wins over most of the other top contenders. Went over to Bellator, became champion. Holy smokes, Sergio Pettis' stock is higher than it ever had been.
I mean, if Henry Cejudo came back and won the UFC bantamweight title, like, start looking for the tweets from Pettis.
Yeah.
Who beat him?
Yeah. So
like,
I mean,
if he's over there in Bellator with wins over the UFC flyweight and bantamweight champs,
yeah, not a bad place to be. So yeah, I like that for Chookagian next. All right, fellas. So let's go ahead and move on to perhaps the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not since we last met. I'll begin this week because, hey, it's a perfect tie-in for the last topic of conversation, being Katlyn Chookagian and the state of the women's flyweight division. Miesha Tate, former bantamweight champion of both the UFC and Strikeforce, whom recently unretired, is now supposed to take on Lauren Murphy in a fight night main event at flyweight, be her flyweight debut, a quick path to the title for a former champion. And just as I was looking this up, just to make sure I had a couple of the details right, well, I just came across my timeline that Miesha Tate just made an appearance on Ariel Helwani's MMA Hour, where she said the bout agreement has not been signed. In fact, she hasn't even seen an agreement for this fight. So this may not even be happening, to which I too am not surprised that the UFC is announcing fights that aren't official. Gentlemen, please share your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moments for the week. Jay, I'll begin with you.
I wish I could be surprised about what you just said, but oh my God, I am so not surprised. It almost makes my nose bleed. Here's another story that I should be surprised about, but I am not. So you guys remember there was a fight card that happened in November. Renan Barão was going to fight in Massachusetts against some guy, and Marcus Davis ended up becoming the main event against like a 4-15 opponent. And Marcus Davis, who was almost 50 years old, won very violently. Won by like he dropped him and then hit a triangle or something like that. I can't remember the exact footage. Anyway, he blew through this guy at the ripe old age of 48. So here's the problem. He fought in November, and you know, as you do, you get the check and you move on. Well, Marcus Davis never got his paycheck. And it turns out he didn't get his paycheck because Premier FC, which is the organization that brought him on, Premier FC, by the way, in Massachusetts, United States, and not some strange jurisdiction, didn't pay, ghosted, quiet, nothing. This is all according to Davis himself publicly. You know, let them know, hey, I'm going to start talking about this if you don't pay me. And they threatened him, and he said, fine, I'm going to talk about it. So, according to Marcus Davis and sources he has within the company, Premier FC, to pay for this event, took on a not so angel investor. And it was somebody who they didn't know much about, didn't do the right research on. And when it came time to pay, the feds froze the assets of the company because the investor had ties to terrorism. So Marcus Davis is sitting there going, wait, what are you guys doing here? And so I'm not surprised we have devil investors going around that are trying to throw money at American fight cards. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons.
Oh, what a
So,
beautiful,
Ali
beautiful
Abdelaziz.
sport.
In theory.
Dude, like that reminds me. Dude, AFC, Alaska Fighting Championship, is currently like under fire for stiffing its fighters and ghosting. That, I mean, dude, they've been on Fight Pass for years. They used to be kind of, you know, a joke, but with the rise of Alaskan MMA, like they had become what I thought was a respectable organization, but like they're doing it now too.
And they had an event behind the American Legion, so I can't really say. Like, it's a backyard of American Legion. It was one of fight cards. Pretty good.
Yeah. All right, Ben. What's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, the UFC on ESPN 32 card yielded a pretty good performance from Bill Algeo. Algeo pulled to 2-2 in the UFC, spoiling the debut of João Anderson Brito, a highly touted prospect off of the Contender Series. Took a righteous unanimous decision off him, got kind of slammed all over the place for the first round, let the little muscle-bound guy gas himself out, and then Algeo won going away, almost finished the fight in the closing moments. Like, definitely the best performance of his entire career to date, considering the setting and the opponents. But afterwards, he gave a head-scratching post-fight interview. Michael Bisping, of course, asked him for a call-out because that's what the UFC does. He called out Chikadze, which, dude, you just pulled to 2-2 in the UFC. Like, that, you know, even after Chikadze lost, that is not a fight that Algeo can call for right now. But he called Chikadze a Joe Biden voter, which, as insults go, it wasn't funny except in the purely unintentional sense. It wasn't really insulting, and it led many people on Twitter, myself included, to wonder aloud if Algeo knows the difference between Georgia the state and Georgia the country. Because once you ask that question, all other sorts of questions follow. Like, you've been in press conferences with this dude all week. If you think he's from like Athens, Georgia, what the fuck do you think that accent is? Have you heard the man talk? Like,
I mean,
I got all kinds of questions. Like, Algeo was from King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. Does he think he really lives in Prussia? And does he think he's the king? Like, I mean, send Bill Algeo back to geography class.
Clearly, Chikadze has the same accent that Andre 2000 had on AT Alien. So clearly, that's what happened. Is a lost long member of the Dungeon family. That's very obvious. Didn't you know that, Ben?
Y'all must have forgot.
I'm dying now.
Oh man, maybe he had that feature on that Cool Breeze album But
Now I just need to like Photoshop Giga Chikadze, in some picture like behind like Big Boy and CeeLo Green.
yeah, he had a cameo in Idlewild, so that's what he was referring to. I guess I don't know, man.
I thought I saw he was in a Ludacris video.
I'm telling you, we end up talking about some real goofy stuff on this show. Good Lord, what is wrong with these people? All right, man. Well, let's keep things pushing because we got more foolishness to discuss. The king of cringe, Henry Cejudo, the former bantamweight and flyweight champion of the UFC, who's been teetering on this line of whether he's coming back or not, has been making a lot of noise, attempting to get a featherweight title shot versus Alexander Volkanovski. Dana White has slammed the door on this notion and claims that Henry Cejudo can't come back and jump weight to get a title shot because that's, quote, not how things work.
I got three things to say about this.
Yes.
1, a beautiful woman, of course. 2, dinosaurs. And 3, the violence of the octagon. Those are the 3 things that George St. Pierre likes, along with coming right back into an immediate title shot outside of the weight class that you're known for fighting in. Get the fuck out of here, Dana. Like, that is literally exactly what George St. Pierre did.
Like, I forget. I think there was a guy, he's really tall, long arms, and he's done a lot of dumb things. And he was a champion for a while, and he's thinking about moving up a division up to challenge for the heavyweight title. Is that UFC champion John Jones that's about to do exactly what you're saying you can't do?
Like,
how did Conor McGregor fight at 155 for the title after what he was doing? I don't understand.
Yeah. Like, Henry Cejudo got his bantamweight title shot by being flyweight champion. So like, he lived this out before and then being told like this is not how things work. Like, that's exactly how they work.
Like, the UFC loves people to do it. They love champs to try to get like 2 titles. Like, they actively want it.
Now, I could see if Dana came out and said something like, hey, well, we don't do things like that anymore, specifically referring to George St. Pierre coming up to middleweight and then abandoning that weight class, just abandoning, fighting altogether. Like, okay, like, I could see that being an argument if he just said that, but that's not really, he's acting like this has never happened. Like, this is unprecedented. Like, undeserved title shots still get handed out, like candy on Halloween. Like, this is what's been going on. How many times have we jumped on here and talked about fighters coming off of losing streaks getting title shots, fighters going down a weight class and immediately getting a title shot, coming up a weight class immediately getting a title shot? That's been a frequent topic of discussion. So I'm amazed that
Randy Couture has entered the chat.
Like, I mean, and to say it with literally no irony, like he said this straight face, like we don't know what's up. I mean, this is. Could you see the gas being lit? Could you see it?
Like this guy in Cejudo has arguably one of the best win streaks in the history of the sport. I'm not talking about the division or whatever. Like, if you want to have it go 5, because Sergio Pettis is a Bellator champion and he's looking great now. Okay, cool, fine. Sergio Pettis, Demetrius Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Dominic Cruz, all champions in major organizations, and he has knocked out 3 of the 5. It's absolutely insane how, of all people, Henry Cejudo, who's not asking for crazy money. I mean, he's asking for more than what he got paid before, but for a fact he's not asking for $10 million. He's not asking for Anderson Silva money, Playboy. He's not going crazy like that. He's just he's asking for what he should be paid. I mean, like, this is some of the things he had said. I fought TJ Dillashaw for peanuts, or whoever he was talking about. He's earned what else does he have to do? Like, and if you want to get a fighter paid, who else does he have to beat? Now, we kind of joked about him jumping a line, going up to featherweight, blah blah, triple C, all that kind of thing. But if he's a willing and able contender and can go through USADA testing and wants to fight at featherweight legitimately, why on earth would we shut that down? You have 12 angles to approach and sell this fight. You're going to sell a Volkanovski fight way better if you have a former champion who never lost either of his titles than you will any sort of nonsense of let's put Korean Zombie in there because he has a name that people kind of like. Like we always talk about the UFC having a short-sighted approach to things. If Henry Cejudo were going to take this as a one-off to blow up the apple cart, okay, you can pump the brakes on that. But this is a company who is actively trying to get John Jones to be at heavyweight to fight for the title. That's the last thing John Jones said, other than, I didn't do the things that you said I did. Other than that stuff, he wants to be a heavyweight champion. So the UFC can't even say we don't do that anymore because the UFC is preparing for this. It is a very strong likelihood, and something I think we will probably dovetail into our next conversation, that the UFC wants John Jones versus Ngannou or Gane. Probably Gane because of what's going on here. So I can't understand how any of this makes any sense at all.
It's so funny that like Henry Cejudo was literally coaching John Jones for this.
Yeah.
He's literally coaching him for this, and Tate's saying that this is not what they do. I'm okay with Henry Cejudo not getting that shot. I'm okay with Korean Zombie getting it over him. I'm okay with the idea of you not jumping in off of retirement up a weight class to get a belt in a division that you never fought in. I am totally okay with that. What I'm not okay with is pretending like it's never happened before.
Yes.
And that's where I'm more perplexed. Like, bro, we just saw this happen. We've seen this happen like multiple times. Like this is not unheard of. So that's where I take more issue with this than anything else. Like, just acknowledge the truth.
There were talks of Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor for a welterweight title shot.
Yeah, there were talk. Nate Diaz was going to fight Tyron Woodley at one point. Like that was a real thing that was going on. So we've seriously just jumped the chart in reality here. That whatever, Dana, whatever.
I forgot the expression. I think it's like "Don't pee in my pocket and tell me it's raining" or something like that. It's just such a bizarre. He can say that with a straight face while currently in active negotiations with fighters to do that thing.
Like, yeah, whatever, man. Well, I mean, what a beautiful way to go right into some of the UFC 270 talk, because we do have a ridiculous main event ahead of us between Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane, a unification of the heavyweight title. Of course, Gane just having won his interim belt several months back versus Derek Lewis. Francis Ngannou will be his first defense of the heavyweight title. Ahead of this matchup, Ngannou has been, we know a lot of the struggles that he's had with the UFC at the negotiating table. The fact that Ciryl Gane is coming into this fight with an interim belt is a byproduct of the friction between the two when it came down to make Francis's first title defense a reality. He's now said that he is not coming back regardless of the result, and he is refusing to fight for 500 and 600K a pop. Do you think Ngannou is dead serious about this? Do you think he is really going to move on, win, lose, or draw after this matchup against Gane Saturday?
I think he means it, but I think he is in for disappointment. Win or lose, I think if he tests his value on the open market, I don't know that he's going to find anybody other than the UFC that would even be willing to entertain paying him what he thinks he's worth, or be able to come to some sort of reasonable compromise with him. I'm sure Bellator would love to have him, but their war chest is not bottomless. The other thing he asked for is to be allowed to box. If the UFC were to do that and just like take a big chunk of it like they did with McGregor, maybe that's a possibility. But I don't think even if he wins, Ngannou has the recourses that he might think he does. Because I mean, even if he does box, there's certainly some curiosity around, man, this, MMA knockout artist, one of the hardest hitting guys that like we've literally ever seen in mixed martial arts. But he's into his 30s. He's never actually boxed. The curiosity lasts about 2 fights. I think he's gonna find he's kind of stuck with the UFC.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Because I was going to interject and say that the only place he would go would be boxing. Like, he's not leaving the promotion. He's not going to one or trying to win $1 million with PFL, which actually might, he'd make more. He'd make more money. He'd make more. Actually, no, he wouldn't, because PFL only takes home like $400,000 after. So he'd actually make less money winning $1 million check because of that.
And then he would have the wrongful death lawsuits to deal with.
Oh, could you imagine if they made him fight? Oh my God. Oh, I just like Muhammad Daris, he had to fight him or something like that. Oh, that'd be so sick.
Muhammad Daris, Muhammad Usman. There's got all kinds of Muhammads he could whoop up. That 6'7" dude that like cheated to a win.
Renan Ferreira. Yeah,
Renan Ferreira.
It's the UFC knows they have Ngannou, but it is not. You want to know what it's not supposed to be? Remember how Dana White said that's not how it is? The heavyweight champion used to mean something. Used to be respected, used to be the guy, the main attraction, the one that would headline no matter who was on the card. If there was a heavyweight title, it didn't matter who else was going on. This was what people came to see. The heavyweight championship was it. It was the be-all, end-all. And you can think of the names we've had over the years of some of the great, amazing, must-see heavyweights. Francis Ngannou is arguably one of the muster-seers of all of these heavyweights because of look what he's done. Like, he has brutal knockout wins over basically every other champion before him. And what? Cain Velasquez. We've talked about him being one of the greatest fights of all time, knocked him out in 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds. Junior Dos Santos, the guy that came after him, and then there was the whole back and forth. Knocked him out in a minute. Stipe Miocic, he got the rematch, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do and knocked Stipe's block off. Stipe, who was supposed to be the next greatest heavyweight of all time, already passed Fedor. So Ngannou has everything you want in a champion. He speaks English just fine, so there's no language barrier or anything like that. He's clever, he's funny, he's personable, he's charitable. I don't get what the UFC cannot sell with Francis Ngannou. And this is something that is bleeding over to the next question, spoiler alert. This doesn't feel like the biggest fight in the world. But Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane should be it. It should absolutely be, record screech. Everybody in the world should be watching this fight, and it doesn't have that feel. I live in a bubble as an MMA media member, so I don't necessarily see what's going on. No, the pulse is not humming for this UFC 270 in a large degree, and that's insane. But the reason why it's not is because of the UFC. Because if the UFC is having negotiating issues with him, they're fighting back, they're pushing back, they're trying not to pay him, they can't simultaneously sell him as the god of knockouts. They can't make him the hero, the superstar, the rock star, if they're also trying to lowball him. And so in these negotiations, the UFC is sabotaging their golden. I mean, what is it? They're clipping the wings of the golden goose or something like that?
They're cutting their nose off to spite their face.
It is the most short-sighted of all short-sighted things. You can sell Ngannou forever until he decides he's done here, which could be in 5 years, could be in 10 years. Heavyweights go forever. He's 35 on the records. So they could use Ngannou and sell him and make so much money, but they're fighting him. And by fighting him, they're driving down sales. They're driving down interest. I don't believe the was it the Honda Center? No, what was it? What is the
Honda Center that this fight is going to be at? Yeah,
the Honda Center. I don't know if it's sold out. I don't. I mean, I'd check, and that's crazy. We're a week away. How on earth would I not be absolutely certain the event is sold out? Because it always talks about it's sold out. Oh my God, the interest is crazy. This is the heavyweights, and they are burning him. They're burning all of it down, and it's just baffling that they're not going to even remotely entertain this, because they're what is it? They're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies at this point. Yeah, and I'm out of expressions because
this is especially considering their expansion plans for Africa.
Yes.
Like you have the golden goose for this market to cultivate that market, someone
Yes.
with the hard story that's a tearjerker of a story that you can sell, someone who good looking, charming, personable, all the good qualities that you mentioned.
And he's got a good story too.
And built like a G.I. Joe, like he's built like an action figure. Like you can sell this like no tomorrow. And at the same time, you're dangerously running up on undermining your entire business structure to not pay this one person. You're very like we're going to get into our who you got shortly here, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that Francis Ngannou goes out there and decapitates any human being within 30 seconds. That is a strong possibility, no matter who he's standing in front of. And if that man walks away with your title, with your unified title, because keep in mind, you created another title to undermine him. He walks away with both of those belts and those bragging rights and moves on to fight in Bellator, to fight in ONE, to fight to box on a Jake Paul undercard or whatever the case may be. You really just threw a lot of egg on your own face to not have the best heavyweight in the world on your roster while claiming to have the best fighters in the world.
And it's absolutely mind-blowing. Do you remember how much the UFC got paid for letting Conor go box?
Oh, just some absurd amount of money.
The name
it was like
40 mil comes to
50
mind.
50 million or something like that, right?
It was half.
Okay, so yeah, 40 mil or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was a number that I thought I'd top of my head. So the UFC could simultaneously do better, maybe not 10 mil a fight like the Khabib thing they were talking about, but do better, build Ngannou up, let him box, make $50 million on that alone, and then he comes back, and even if he loses, he has a bigger stock, because if he's the UFC champion, the reigning champion, not defending champion, as Dana once said when Conor was fighting Mayweather, that was stupid. The reigning champion going over to box a Joshua, another super name, a Fury, anybody like that, and then come back, the stock will be bigger. You'll get more money. People will be paying attention. Boxing people will be paying attention. So the UFC could do all of this and make more money than what they're doing now by throwing it away. Because I'm going to say something really controversial here. If Ciryl Gane wins, like a lot of people are thinking he's going to win, the heavyweight division is going to kind of be quiet for a while, because he's not an exciting champion type fighter. I mean, he's well-spoken, he's intelligent, he's effective, but he's not, and he's also built like a Greek god.
He looks like he was built in the lab to steal your girl.
Yeah, he does, Sean Bailey.
He's built like me, essentially.
But
right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, he might be a little taller, but basically,
just a little bit.
virtually identical.
But the fight style isn't a hugely sellable one, like a Francis Ngannou knocking everybody. Yeah. I mean, the highlight reel.
You can see what Ciryl Gane's title reign would look like.
And
he'll be like just George St. Pierre 3 times larger.
And that's 250,000 pay-per-view buys. Ngannou, can he knock the breath out of so-and-so? Can Ngannou get up there and knock the life out of, I don't know, I mean, who's left, but can he beat Derek Lewis? Can he knock out Derek Lewis? There you go. So many angles that Ngannou has where Ciryl Gane has not. And the UFC is rooting for Gane to be champion. Why do I know this? They let him become interim champion. They made a belt for him. Why do I say they made a belt for him? Because they made Derek Lewis fight on short notice in his hometown for Ngannou, or for Gane to get the belt. So the UFC is putting their eggs in the Gane basket, and I can't figure out why, because he's not as marketable.
Well, this is the same thing that they've done several times. Like they have sabotaged their own roster that
Yes.
could have made them a lot of money to maintain the status quo of the power that they have over the roster. Like this playbook has been used several times before. And I think right now, like Ciryl Gane as champion, as undisputed champion, he'd make a fine champion.
Sure.
I think he'd be very marketable. I think he'd sell relatively well, but it would be dependent on who is standing across from him.
That's the problem.
And
You want a
Ngannou,
champion that it doesn't matter who
exactly.
they fight.
And Ngannou has the Mike Tyson quality about him,
Yes,
where you want to see
exactly.
him. You want to see him, and you don't care who it is that he's out there dislodging their brainstem. But I want to see that guy, and that's that
Yes.
Tyson factor.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I think I'm gonna give you a little bit of pushback on the boxing thing, because I think that Francis Ngannou has a lot more pull in that regard than some other fighters would. And I think even if he's on the outs with the UFC and he's stuck with maybe 2 fights of genuine public interest in the boxing world, how much can he make off of those 2 fights? I guarantee it'll be a whole lot more than he's made so far in his UFC career.
Yep.
It'll be a hell of a lot more than 500K a fight. A hell of a lot more than that. You put him in there with a Deontay Wilder, which I think is a perfect pairing of
Sure.
2 just wild, crazy men, devoid of a lot of technique and heavy on athleticism and power. You put him in there with the Deontay Wilder, no matter how that goes, then you throw him in there with, I don't know, Luis Ortiz or any top heavyweight boxer. And no matter the results of that first fight, he's going to get paid a lot for the second, because it's still going to be a curiosity behind it. And he's going to make so much more money than he would if he were fighting as a champion on his current UFC contract. Yeah, I mean, I can't get into how ridiculous it is that the UFC is just not, it's just so willing to drive themselves off of a cliff to keep things going the way they are, when they have this gold mine sitting in front of them that could potentially build this brand even further.
In the interest of derailing the conversation a little further, because I like the rabbit hole we're going down here, where the UFC's path and burning Ngannou and all the things of back and forth, what is the UFC's end game with this then?
I don't know. I guess
Like,
just keep control.
Like we're usually good at sussing out the eventual storyline and figuring out the path to travel on. But Gane, is that really the guy that you're trying to make champion here? Is that the end game?
If it wasn't Gane, it'd be somebody else. I don't think it necessarily
Is
has
it
to do
just not
specifically with
Ngannou?
Gane, just not Ngannou. That's it, just not Ngannou. Because Gane, like I said, Gane is a great fighter.
He's a stud.
Who's very
Yeah.
marketable, who has a hell of a personality. Like he trolled the whole city of Houston as he clowned
was
Derek Lewis in there.
That was funny.
I mean, it was genius. It was hilarious. Like this is the level of personality that you have with Ciryl Gane, that if you put a couple cameras in front of him, it will come out. And you can put a dollar sign in front of it, and people will whip out their credit cards. But he's not challenging the status quo. He is not demanding more money. He is not pushing the boundaries, and that's the issue.
You're kind of circling the airport here, because we accuse the UFC of being short-sighted, but in fact, they've been playing the same long game for a very long time. Because even more important than how marketable the top of the heavyweight division is 2 years from now is that the UFC has complete control and leverage over their roster 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, think back to when they just waited out Randy Couture.
Yeah.
At the time when Couture was in what we thought were the waning years of his viability and marketability. Turns out he had another 7 or 8 years in him, but he was 40, and they waited him out. It seemed incredibly short-sighted at the time, but you know what? If they just opened the pocketbook for Randy Couture back then, or just think of like any other like superstar of theirs that they have just
Like
put
a
their
Jens
foot down with.
Pulver or a BJ Penn in the
How
beginning.
different would things be right now? And you know what? The UFC is just deathly afraid of setting a precedent of letting one of their fighters take a stand against them and just paying them what they're worth, because that 16% revenue share is what's then at risk. And that is bigger than the immediate future of any individual division. The UFC, the brand, has to stay bigger than any one fighter.
Well said. Well said. All right. So, with that being said, I mean, more money on the table here in the sense that this is the first time the UFC is rolling out a $75 pay-per-view under the new pricing. Is this $75 worth of fight card in your opinion, fellas?
If anything is, this is. I mean, it is a very good card. It has even though we just finished saying that it's criminally undermarketed, we have the best heavyweight fight you can make in MMA right now at the top. We have a trilogy fight that, if you're gonna have a trilogy fight, like, this is the one to run back, because the first two have been sensational, and they're rare for a trilogy fight like this. I have no idea who the hell is going to win. You're going to ask me who you got in about 5 minutes. I have no fucking idea. And if I can say that and say that the only thing I know about this is it's going to win fight of the night, that's not bad. And that's your co-main event. Yeah. I mean, if there is such thing as an MMA card worth $75, which I'm not saying there is, this is it.
Jay, what say you?
I think back to TJ DeSantis' his game about how much would you pay for this card, and he would charge how much would you pay for this individual fight. This is a $50 card for me. This is a $25 main event. I mean, just being reasonable here. Yes, best heavyweight fight period. This is the fight that you'd want to see. It's the the destroyer of worlds against the undefeated young Thundercat, who is big and strong and could maybe survive the barrage. Questions will be answered, and the betting lines and all the opinions are close. We might be split on both of these fights. And then the title fight, which was a rush trilogy, but at the same time, both of the fights were very interesting. There's no way the third won't be fun. $20 fight. And then on the main card, because obviously you're only paying for the main card, the last 5 fights, I'll give $5 to Michel Pereira, because his fight with Andre Fialho could be a lot of fun. I like Andre Fialho. I have an interesting connection with him, but that's not the point. It's like a round and a half of madness is what's going to happen here. So that's a good $5 main card fight. And then the other two, we don't really know what's on the main card yet. Like Sergey Spivak, we don't know if he's fighting. Cody Stamann, Said Nurmagomedov. Okay, fine, whatever. So this is a $50 fight card. But I want to ask an important question I definitely circled when I was talking about this main event and the Ngannou situation and the card itself. Does this fight have that big fight feel, that goosebump talking about it, that aura about it? We go, ooh boy, something's gonna happen for you guys.
I'll say only when we talk about the actual fight, when we bring up how great of a main event it is, then I start getting that feeling, getting those butterflies, and getting really excited and anticipating it. But no, I really think the fight card we had Saturday killed a lot of the momentum that this could have had. The energy that went into putting on UFC on ESPN 32 or whatever it was called, that could have been toward hyping this. We just got into why this fight is not being hyped and why this seems to have been put on the back burner. But what a strange way to roll out a new price tag. Like, to have such a whimper going into a fight that we really should be doing backflips about, a co-main event that, while I feel is rather unnecessary right now, we could be doing backflips about as well. Like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Like, we should be more excited about this than we are.
I skip past asking you, and actually before Dudley says something, how much would you pay for this card? The 270, because you didn't answer that.
60?
Is it a $75 card? Or
no, it's not a $75 card. Like, for a $75 card, like, keep in mind, maybe if you ask us in a couple years, a $75 card means something different. But this is the first time you're putting this price tag on. I want names from top to bottom. I want matchups of heavenly proportions throughout this entire card if you're forking over more money for it. So no, this is not a $75 card to me. Yeah, and you know, I understand Dana saying like, hey, this wasn't his call, this was an ESPN thing, which is something that we kind of suspected. I think we talked about a bit last week. But hey, at the same time, you're telling this guy you can't pay him what he's worth, and the price goes up. Not a good look, fam. Not a good look at all.
All right, yeah, Duffy, just to kind of circle back. So we're not entirely convinced this is a $5 milkshake, but Ngannou Gane, is this the big fight? Is this the your hair on your arms stand up kind of thing? What are you feeling about this whole big main event thing?
Well, I'm with Ant on this. When I think about it, I get excited. And as I will, kind of dive into tape study and get ready to talk about it for probably 20 minutes on the preview for Sure Dog on Wednesday night, by the time I'm done talking about that, I will be absolutely amped through the roof for this fight. The only head scratching thing is that I don't wake up in the middle of the night amped about this fight. And that's simply because the UFC has under promoted it so badly. I mean, they barely talked about it last week, like the ESPN card. Like, you wouldn't think this thing was coming 7 days later. Like maybe the biggest matchup they'll make all year. And yeah, like that's it. Just I'm surprised, for as embedded as I am in MMA, that it hasn't been in my face to the point of exhaustion. But nope, it's like, whoa, that is this week, huh?
Yeah. I kind of knew it was more this week simply because it's going to be in, the greater Los Angeles area. And like, I'm gonna hang out with with a couple of people that are coming in town for it. And that's why it's on my calendar. For that reason, and not because this is being promoted through the roof as one of the best heavyweight matchups of all time. So man, they dropped the ball on that one, but we know why that ball was dropped. So all right, fellas. Well, now let's ask that age-old question, and I'll begin with you first, Ben, on this one. Brandon Moreno defending his flyweight title against the man he took it from, Deiveson Figueiredo. Who you got?
This is the ultimate example of a fight where you've seen the first two fights and neither of them makes you feel conclusive about the way the third one will go. Like, this isn't Holly Holm beating Ronda Rousey and you going, okay, now that I've seen this, that happens every time they fight. Because Moreno, he is a great champ. He's a whole lot of fun, but he is not bulletproof. Like, everyone that I talk to loves Moreno as a champ. Like, he's just this enthusiastic, charismatic guy. His fights are always fire, but he has 5 losses for a reason. Like, he's a beatable guy. He might be the most vulnerable UFC champ coming into this year. Just in terms of who on the odds, is most likely to lose his title, even if he gets past Figueiredo. Like, if he fights twice more this year, there's every chance he could lose one of those. And it's not because he's a bad fighter. He's a great fighter. He's young. He's probably still improving. He's kind of wild. And on the other side, Figueiredo, he might be a more skilled fighter than Brandon Moreno. He might be more athletic. He might be stronger. The question is, how is his actual body? How is his weight cut going? Because that affects him. He is a guy with a titanic cut to make 125 pounds, and it affects him. Like, absolutely. Like, it affects his performance, how much weight he had to cut in terms of a water cut, on fight week. Physically, he looks as though he has taken that to heart and gone back to the drawing board for this fight. So, as I said a few minutes ago, I have no fucking idea who wins this. I'm going to have to make a pick in about 2 days, and I still don't know who I'm going to pick. I may not know who I'm going to pick when I start talking about it on the preview, and I may just talk myself one way or the other in the course of like 8 minutes. I have no idea.
Jay, who you got?
I will admit I've absolutely done that on prime picks I've written up, being like, yep, okay, here we go. Here's how we're leaning here. I have a stronger opinion than you do, Mr. Duffy. And I think that's because I have been paying really close attention to how Figueiredo has been leading up to this fight. And as he's been posting very publicly and loudly and proudly, he seems to have this weight cut under control. A couple days ago, he was only like 134, I think. So if he's 9 pounds out a week before or over a week before the event, I'm comfortable that his
mean,
weight cut won't destroy him. Now, yes, it could
Angela
be
Lee
public
weighs more than that
posturing.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows how much she weighs? Really, it's just a question mark there. We don't see the weigh-ins. You know, I see. I could tell, at least from my totally uneducated, not an MMA fighter, just write about it on the internet type of perspective. I could see that Figueiredo's weight cut really got the better of him in the rematch. Now, first of all, very, very important to say, I thought Figueiredo won the first fight. I don't believe it should have been a draw. I had 3 rounds in the bank for him, I believe. No, I'm sorry. I had 4, 48, 46, because he lost a point in the third round. So, yes, I did have Figueiredo winning that fight. But he lost steam. He ran out of steam in the second and into the third rounds against Moreno in a way he doesn't. He just doesn't. Like I've seen him go the distance a couple times. I saw him against Pantoja. I saw him against Juicy Formiga when he got totally out wrestled, and he didn't look that totally spent, exhausted, dead tired. I think this Figueiredo, who realized, oh my God, I cannot let that happen again. I feel he's going to have the edge. He's going to keep the power going and not throw stupid, which wore him out beforehand when he would just throw so hard. Because they always say the strikes that wear you out the most are the ones that missed. So he's not going to be quite as Tasmanian devilish. He might be a little more reserved, like a sort of an organized chaos, kind of like putting a lid on a volcano. But I see him getting the job done. I don't know if I'm ready to say that he's going to be the first person to finish Moreno, but I think he might become the first fighter to finish Moreno, like a 4th round club and sub guillotine kind of thing like that, where Moreno gets hurt, shoots in for a double, gives his neck up. I can see that kind of thing happening in the later rounds. But man, it's going to be spectacular. It's going to be a great fight, but I am leaning Figueiredo.
Oh man, I like you guys.
I like you too, Ant.
I have no idea what direction I'm going in right now, and as I've done many times on this show, I'll figure it out as I talk. So I think one thing that is very defining about the matchups between Moreno and Figueiredo so far, a lot of it seems to be based on what version of Figueiredo shows up. And I think the first time he was kind of buying his own hype, and maybe you could say that the second fight as well, that he came in feeling himself, and he came in with this aura of a champion, and just knowing he's just going to go out there and destroy everybody. And sometimes when you do that, you go a little bit too far and you underestimate the guy in front of you. Moreno was supposed to get killed in that first fight, and he went out there and put on a performance of a lifetime, and opened a lot of people's eyes, including Figueiredo, of how good he really is. The second fight comes around, and the ridiculous weight cut that Figueiredo goes through to make 125 caught up to him. And while I normally would say, hey, that's not a situation that's going to improve with more time. Like, it's going to be harder and harder as you get older to make the weight. If the reports are true that he's coming in this close to weight, this far out from the fight, then I don't think that's a problem. And also it says that he's doing something different in his training, as far as how intense it is, the level of cardio he's putting in, just how much just how much work is being put in the gym. That sounds like a focused, dangerous Figueiredo. And while I think Moreno has all the tools in the world to survive, as he did the first time, and to win as he did the second time, a tornado of a in shape, not depleted, powerful, and really hungry Figueiredo, both literal and figurative, is a very, very, very tall mountain to climb. I think he gets it done. I think he wins his belt back. Either way, we're in for a beautiful, beautiful, violent treat. This is going to be a spectacular fight.
Yes or no answer to this question. If Figueiredo wins, is Moreno Figueiredo going to be the first quadrilogy in UFC history? Because they'll both have a win and there's a draw between them.
Yes.
Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes. Maybe it's not immediate.
Right. Oh God, no.
Yeah. I'll say this: if Cody Garbrandt beat Kai Kara France, that would be the fight that breaks up the matchups of those two.
Ben, what do you think? Quadrilogy, if Figueiredo gets it done, not immediate, but
The
just
only
there will
thing
be
that
one.
would prevent it is I could definitely see Figueiredo moving up to 135 to try his fortunes there.
It's fair.
That's not
Otherwise,
how they
yeah.
do
Otherwise,
things.
yeah, it happens. I mean, I know that's not how this works, but
Yeah, it's not how it works at all.
All right,
Except
fellas.
for when it always works like that. Anyways, carry on, Ian.
All right, so let's get into it. The main event, the unification of the UFC's heavyweight title between the real champ Francis Ngannou and the interim champ Ciryl Gane. Who you got, Ben? It's on you, man.
anytime you get two fighters who are intimately familiar with each other from having trained together, and I know that they both kind of dismiss it by saying it was, it was early in our careers. You both are still early in your careers. Like, it wasn't that long ago. You can usually, even if like they don't spill the tea, you can usually gather from their reactions who got the better of it. Like, I mean, when John Jones and Rashad Evans fought each other, like, you could tell who had gotten the better of it in sparring, just like that. I think Gane like kind of outclassed Ngannou when they fought each other. I think it's definitely stuck in Ngannou's head. You can tell because he doth protest too much. Like, oh, they doctored that tape. That's not how it was. He's like, no, dude, that's how it was. Like, the question is how much they have developed since then. Gane is and I don't want to say effortlessly because that takes credit away from how incredibly intelligent he is in the cage and how diligently he must have worked. But for as early as he is in his career, he seems to just be an effortlessly sophisticated fighter. Ngannou will probably never be a sophisticated fighter, but I am interested to see what another full camp with Eric Nixick is going to do for him, because that man has just kind of stepped forward and become like, he's gone from a best kept secret to not a secret at all. Like, one of the very best trainers in the game and one of the guys you least want to have to face one of his charges off of a full camp to prepare for you. Like, he's like entering like the Trevor Whitman territory of like, he's going to find a way to beat your dude. Having said that, I mean, Ngannou has the ultimate equalizer. It's a cliche, but one punch knockout power. And yes, he has plus power even by the standards of heavyweights. He's one of the hardest hitting fighters we've ever seen. He has not just, like you said, he's built like a GI Joe figure. Yeah, I mean, he's an absolute tank, but he's not just some dude like swinging crudely. He has this fantastic ability to, no matter what kind of odd collision position he finds himself in, when he lands the kill shot, you look and his feet are just perfectly planted under him. So he is generating all the power that his extremely prodigious body can generate. Like, you look at some of his finishes, the two blades fights, the overeem, like, decapitation, like every single one of them. Like, you look at the freeze frame of when he's throwing and you're like, man, this guy isn't just some barbarian running out there like, like Donkey Konging people. So he has that, but that's going to require him to actually land that. I think Gane's really, really going to frustrate him. And I think this fight will not be as explosive as we're hoping for. And I think Gane is probably just going to win a decision or wear Ngannou out and maybe get a late finish on a frustrated and tired champ.
All right, Jay, who you got?
I'll start this off by saying that this card as a whole, but especially these two fights, have probably the livest dogs that can ever be in a fight, in terms of the underdogs that you go, oh my God. Francis Ngannou currently, as of the taping of this broadcast, Ngannou was plus 135 and Figueiredo is plus 147. So they're both moderate underdogs, and they're both, the power that can just knock buildings down.
They might be the two hardest hitting fighters in the UFC pound for pound.
And yet they're both underdogs to guys who people argue are against better technicians, and that's a fair analysis, especially with Gane. I have slept on Gane all the way up. I have not believed that he would beat Derek Lewis or Alexander Volkov. I was kind of on the fence about Yerzina Rozenstruik, because I know Rozenstruik can get lulled into a nothing, like what happened when he fought Alistair Overeem, and then suddenly knocked him out with 4 seconds left. But until then, it was dreadful. And Junior Dos Santos, I thought Dos Santos' last win might be him. So I haven't really counted on Gane to win a fight. And I'm going to keep that trend alive and possibly be wrong again, because I don't think Gane has really been hit cleanly all the way by a guy that hits as hard as Ngannou. Like, the hardest somebody hit him up to that point was probably like the third round in I think it was the third round in the Volkov fight, where just for a minute, Volkov led with a jab and stung him with one shot, and Gane kind of shook it off. Just that one little moment. Like, Gane won the fight, don't get me wrong, but there was that one little moment of, ooh, I don't like that. And he treated it like that when he fought Derek Lewis. I don't want to get hit by this guy. I'm going to stay as far away as I can from him. And I had said in the preview, Lewis is going to engage with him. He's going to charge in. He's not going to get picked apart and poked apart. Well, he did get picked apart and poked apart. Despite saying that, I don't think Ngannou is going to get picked apart and poked apart. I know I'm probably going to eat my words. I'm saying it now. I know I'm going to come back and eat crow next week, but I do not care. Francis Ngannou, he has the reach advantage on Ciryl Gane, which is a very important thing for a guy that relies on long-rangey strikes, because Ngannou, despite being a hook thrower, not really a lot of straight punches from Ngannou, he can close distance in a terrifying manner. How he got into Stipe, when Stipe hurt him briefly at the end of the fight, and he reached and tagged him back, that kind of response, willpower, and range to be able to hurt somebody while reaching out far to tag him, I just feel like he's going to get Gane, and Gane's not going to know how to react in that situation. Now, if Gane tries to panic wrestle, I suppose is the term that kids use nowadays, and try and get him down, I don't know if he's going to have the same success that Stipe did, considering Stipe tried to wrestle Ngannou and he wasn't able to do it in the rematch to any noticeable degree. I see Ngannou getting the knockout within 2 rounds, and spoiling Gane's record, and having underdogs win out on the 2 title fights.
All right. Well, it looks like I will be the tiebreaker here. Man, let me just, before I say anything, I'm going to say I want Ngannou to win, simply because of the chaos that he is brewing up. I want him to win. I want him to disrupt the order. I want Dana to be sweating. I want everybody at Endeavor to just, all the celebrity investors and stuff, to start checking their shares. I want them terrified of Ciryl Gane getting slept and Ngannou just disrupting the whole paradigm. That being said, I don't think that's what happens. Ciryl Gane is such a patient technician. He doesn't give a damn whether or not you're entertained. And I think that's a very important quality to go out there with against someone who can just put your lights out with one touch. Ciryl Gane at his best, I think he can avoid Ngannou, because while Ngannou lands those kill shots with a perfect footing behind him, man, there's a whole lot in between where his footing is atrocious. And even in the Stipe win, he's throwing punches that when he misses, he's horribly off balance.
Yep.
You know, his footwork is still very much a work in progress. And maybe Nixick is I'm sure he's closing a lot of those gaps now, but is he going to close enough of them by Saturday? I don't know, because he's starting from so far back as far as some of the finer technical aspects that Gane has seemed to have already mastered. Now, I think Gane with his kicking game can catch Ngannou a little off balance while he's throwing those, clip him to the legs a couple of times, and that's just going to disrupt and frustrate Ngannou. I think he does eventually return to that wild man who was swinging crazy at Rozenstruik and missed with everything until he finally caught him against the fence. I think he's going to evolve into that at some point due to the level of frustration. However, it's not going to end in the same result. I think Gane does pick him apart. I think he does sort of have his way with him after that frustration sets in around middle of the second round or so. And I think he cruises to a fairly clear-cut decision. But man, I want to see Ngannou shake the world and walk away with with Endeavor just quaking in their boots about what he's going to do to their business structure.
Just the look on Dana's face as he straps the belt back around Ngannou.
Oh.
It would be the Tyron Woodley, like Roy Nelson level of like, I am not happy to be giving this man an award.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say that he wouldn't even be the one to put the belt on him. I think he would just
like Halle Berry in the house again.
Like Nick Sick is going to have to put the belt on him or something like that. Or not Nick Sick. Gane's coach. Why am I blanking on his name? I mean, Nick Sick. Yeah, Nick Sick. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Look, make Fernand Lopez do it would be the most fucked up thing.
Oh, that'd be so cruel. Oh my god.
Yeah, like that's I think is going to happen if Ngannou wins. Like Dana's going to be so mad.
In and out here, take it, get out of here, or put it on his shoulder and
put it on his shoulder and just walk away.
Yeah,
and that press conference afterward will be fireworks. That would be fight of the night for me as the press conference if Ngannou wins.
See, your analysis of the fight, both of you, is right, but I really am just.
That's what I want. Like, how could you not want that to happen?
Yeah, and the best thing about the press conference is if Ngannou wins, you know that unless he goes to the hospital, if Gane's there, he's going to be gracious.
Yeah.
So
he's going to be a sweetheart.
Like sour Dana.
Oh, he's going to Gane is going to be a sweetheart.
Oh, absolutely.
Gane's been trying to be his friend like during the build-up.
Yeah.
Gane will win and be a sweetheart. Gane will just be a nice guy regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's good. He's a total gentleman. So yeah, but man, I want to see Dana with a red face. I want to see him sweating. I want to see him crush the can of Monster Energy on the podium.
If you want to see Dana with a red face, this has been a good decade for you.
Yeah,
he's just got a red face. He got,
Oh, this is going to be great. Man, War and Ngannou. All right, so let's go.
Let's get weird, guys. Let's get weird.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. All right, so that's going to do it for this edition of Unleash. You know what you got to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. Oh, Unleash. What the hell am I talking about? This edition of the Living Death Show. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Catch Ben and Jay doing fine work for SureDog.com on the play-by-play. Jay, I'm sure you are. Ben, I know you're going to do some recap stuff, and you got preview, post-fight show as well coming up. So be sure to check these two gentlemen out, all the work they're going to do around 270. Believe it or not, I'm back to the sphere of doing some regular content. So MMA On Point and I are collaborating on some more stuff, and the details have been ironed out, and I will actually get to work on that project tonight. So hope to have some cool stuff coming up for you guys in the very near future. So anyway, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.
Wow.